Hello there and welcome to a Laurence Plays Retrospective, where I'm going to look back at what's been happening on the channel over the past year, talk about some lessons I've learned on the way through, and most importantly, discuss what might be coming next for the channel. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what videos and streams you've enjoyed, what you'd like to see more of, and any new ideas you might have. I very much enjoy making the videos, but it's much more fulfilling to make ones that you enjoy watching as well. There's very much two sides to the channel. There's the streams that happen every Monday and Wednesday, with the occasional bonus one as well, and also various videos, some of which are inspired by the streams. So let's start off with a series that combined the two very nicely. And that was, of course, the big series on this channel for a very long time, the Factorio Space Exploration and Krastorio 2 multiplayer series, with Tristan, Mark and Mike. If you caught the retrospective stream and videos when that series finished last July, you'll know that this run lasted 2 whole years, with approximately 200 hours of playtime, or 800 hours between us, and spawned over 200 summary videos, taking us all the way from the start to completing both starship and archaeological victories. Whilst we're not the only people to have got to the final archaeological victory, there aren't many streamers who made it. There was a lot of content from this series, with a stream and 2 or 3 summary videos nearly every week, and I found that having multiple players meant I always had plenty to talk about in the summaries. Another hit last year was the Warptorio supporter stream, coming in at number 2 for average viewers. Warptorio is another Factorio mod which gives you a warp platform that produces enormous amounts of pollution, but can take you to a fresh new planet whenever you start to get scared. This series was an opportunity for me to do a much longer weekend streaming sessions, with each one typically being around 8 or 9 hours, as opposed to the normal 4 or 5. It was also really nice to have an opportunity to play with more of the social group on the Discord server, and to have another way to thank people who've supported the channel over the years. I really enjoyed playing Warptorio, both because of the people I was playing with, but also the mod itself. It put a new twist onto Factorio, making it feel very different, whilst still being the same fantastic game underneath. Apparently there's now a quest mode available for it, which adds a greater variety of planets with new challenges, so there's certainly potential for trying that out again in the future. In parallel with the regular space exploration streams, I was also running a single player game of Satisfactory, since one of my supporters was kind enough to send me a gift copy on Steam. This series was never as popular as the space exploration one, unfortunately, which I think is down to a number of reasons. The channel has very much been built on Factorio content over the years, starting off with the Angel Bob's mod packs and then moving on to space exploration, and so whilst Satisfactory is a vaguely similar game, I suspect the same level of interest wasn't really there. I was also approaching it as a beginner, whereas I have several thousand hours of experience in Factorio by now, which I think makes my streams more interesting. Additionally, I was playing Satisfactory completely vanilla, with no mods, which again makes the run a bit less unusual. However, since it was my first time playing through it, I thought it made sense to start with the basics. I did enjoy playing Satisfactory, however, like the previous year's Dyson Sphere program run, I didn't enjoy it enough to want to immediately start playing it again with mods. I may well revisit it in the future though, especially if there's a lot of interest in it, but for now, I think I'm going to be sticking with Factorio. And as always, returning to Factorio, once space exploration was finished, I started a new Factorio series called Jen's First Factory, where I introduced one of my friends to the game and ran around commenting on her builds and keeping her pointed in approximately the right direction while she spaghettied her way up to yellow science production. This series did better than the Satisfactory series, but only by a little bit, and I suspect for similar reasons. It can be fun to watch someone learning a new game that you're already familiar with, but only for a certain amount of time. Unfortunately, due to various time pressures, this series is essentially on hold for the foreseeable future. I don't know if we'll return to it, but if we do, I'm afraid it won't be soon. Chronologically, the next entry in the streams was the XCOM 2 War of the Chosen series, which I'd put on hold when I was given Satisfactory. I had enjoyed playing it, especially as I'd now got to the point where all of my heroes were ludicrously powerful, and so I was keen to finish it off. That took me a few weeks, and I thought it was good fun, especially trying to explain the thought processes behind my moves, but unfortunately this was my least popular series since I started tracking. I suspect that XCOM 2 is just a bit too different from my normal content. People who come to my channel for the Factorio may be willing to take the step over to Satisfactory, but XCOM was just that little bit too far. I think that's completely understandable though, and once again, I was a beginner at the game, so I wasn't doing anything hugely unusual in it. If there's interest, maybe I'll do another run, perhaps with the Star Wars Total Conversion, since I do have a bit of interest in Star Wars nerdery from my younger days, with the books and the X-Wing games. This now brings us on to my latest series, the ongoing Factorio Space Age run. Like many other fans, I've been very excited about the expansion for Factorio that eventually came out in October last year. This brought new planets, new processes, new enemies, a huge overhaul with so much new content to learn about, and I've been really enjoying it. Yes, sometimes Gleba happens, and I have headaches getting the heat everywhere I need it to or go on Aquilo, but these are the challenges that make the game satisfying, especially when you manage to solve them. I have now technically completed the game and seen the win screen, but there's still a number of things I want to do before I call the run officially over, so there'll certainly be a few more Space Age streams to come. This has been an excellent series and I've very much enjoyed playing it, and thank you to everyone who's been watching. The numbers haven't been quite as high as the K2SE run, however, and I'm going to go into my thoughts on that in a moment. I think getting close to the end of this run is what spurred me to make this video, as I now need to make plans for the future. But before I get on to that, there's one more stream that needs to be mentioned. We recently ran another supporter stream playing with the Archipelago randomizer, which allows you to link a number of games together and shuffle all the power-ups and unlocks between different games. For example, Tristan might complete a Minecraft quest, which unlocks red belts for me in Factorio, and then I could do a research which would send Pete some Pokeballs in Pokemon Red, and so on and so forth. This was another marathon 8-hour stream, during which we managed to complete one game, get a few more very, very close, but then there were a couple that still need quite a lot more work. We do need to work out how we're going to finish this off, as it would be very unsatisfying to abandon it this close to the end, but there's not an enormous amount left for some of us to do, so we shall see. It's been a busy year. That brings us to 7 different series, and I think I've learnt a few things from seeing the popularity levels of the different runs. First up, I think it's most important to do something unusual, ideally with some level of demand for it, of course. Space exploration has been a very popular mod for Factorio, but it's so big that there's not a lot of late game content out there, and I think I filled that niche quite nicely. Space Age is new enough that people are still excited about it, so I might not have the unusualness there, but there's a lot of demand. Warptorio and Archipelago are weird and a bit different, so that's interesting too. On the other hand, my XCOM 2, Satisfactory and Beginner Factorio runs didn't have as much to make them stand out, so there was less interest in them, except of course for my dedicated fans, who I am always very thankful for. On another note, I think that having multiple players helps too. I think again this is partly down to the novelty value. Most streams are single player because sometimes it can be hard to get a group together, and also because more people means there's more going on, there's more conversation, and there's often some banter going back and forth between the players as well. This shows up nicely in the K2SE and various supporter streams being the most popular ones on the channel. Finally, I think the closer the stream is to the core of the channel, the better it does, because that's what people come to the channel to see, and in my case, that means Factorio. This does leave me at a bit of a risk of pigeonholing myself to just Factorio, but I think the right balance will be to go back to streaming multiplayer Factorio once a week, and then something a bit more experimental once a week in parallel. Let me know if you agree, and what you think those streams should be. So I've talked now a lot about streaming, but I actually started off making videos and only got into streaming due to popular demand. So let's get on to the video side. Of course, the regular updates from the K2SE stream series made the bulk of the videos by number, and those all pulled in a good quantity of views. It's very noticeable that the update videos tended to get nearly all of their views in the first few days, with only a trickle coming in later. And this makes a lot of sense to me, with them being essentially a news report into an ongoing series, and also with there being a huge number of them, so it's only going to be the most dedicated viewers who would watch all 200 of them all the way from the start. I also released a few more general Factorio videos, including the Retrospective series looking back at our thoughts regarding the K2SE run, and slightly more successfully, the Guide to Mark's Spaceship Design, a study on different Arcosphere balancing designs, and more recently, an update to my Bots and Logistics tutorial to cover the new features in Factorio 2.0. The spaceships and the logistics videos especially have had steady views coming in ever since they were released, and I've been quite pleased with the way they performed, especially in the few months after Factorio 2.0 came out. I've also made a handful of videos about my first impressions of each planet in Space Age. They've done reasonably well, but I think they're perhaps a little late to the party and not really adding enough to what's already out there compared to the space exploration videos. I'll definitely finish the series and talk about some of the expansions I've done on the planets as I approach the endgame, but I won't be summarising every stream in the way I did before with space exploration. On a very different note, I also made a couple of videos about a woodworking project where I made some hex-shaped gaming trays for my brother. This project was good fun, and I want to do more woodworking once the weather gets a bit nicer, but sadly the videos didn't perform all that well. Again though, that's understandable. They're not gaming content, and they're certainly not Factorio related, even if I am still making things. But I suspect if I made a separate channel for them, then they'd do even worse, as at least I already have a bit of an audience here who might be a bit curious about the other things I get up to when I'm not playing Factorio. So this leads me to a similar conclusion as regarding the streams. My channel and my audience are very much focused on Factorio, so I'll get the best results there. The other big thing that sticks out is that the tutorial videos are by far the most popular by view count, and so I definitely want to make more of those, both updating the existing ones for 2.0 and also producing some new ones. They require more effort to produce, but even proportionally they tend to perform significantly better than anything else I make. Although, as a random outlier, the video I made showing how to replace the battery in a Vauxhall Astra has typically been in the top 3 by watch count most months, so perhaps there's room for car tutorial videos as well. And so, after lots of talking, this brings me on to plans for the future. I definitely want to make more tutorials, as I was saying, although sometimes thinking up the ideas for them can be the hardest part. I want to start a new modded Factorio stream series, ideally multiplayer too. Space exploration was an excellent option there, and I'm sure that once version 0.8 comes out, I'll be taking a look at that. But that's not going to be released for quite some time, so I need another option for the short term. I think UltraCube looks very interesting, and there are lots of mods offering additional planets for Space Age, so I don't think I'll be too short of ideas. In parallel to that, potentially another look at XCOM 2, although I did say that was one of the least popular series I've done, but perhaps a modded run would be more successful? I definitely want to revisit Archipelago with different arrangements of games, and also with just lots of Factorio sessions linked together. Beyond that, well, we shall have to see. What would you like to see me tackle, either from these options or something else entirely? If I started a new channel for woodworking and other DIY projects, would you subscribe? I've even had a few people suggest I should make some videos of simple cooking recipes and techniques. I'm definitely not an expert chef, but maybe that would be the draw. Let me know what you think, and maybe it will all become a reality. Well, thanks for watching. I really appreciate all my viewers, and especially the channel supporters, and the feedback is extremely useful. I hope you'll stick around. There's lots of streams and videos to come, and I'll see you then. Bye bye.